Hello, welcome to Sandy Ainley. Hope you're very well, so to speak. I am on top form. I'm feeling much better today. I don't mind having said. Hence me wearing new jewellery. There we are. I hope you like my royal blue choice. I bought this jewellery from the British equivalent of Tiffany's. It cost me £6.99 approximately, because I'm joking with you. I did not buy this from the British equivalent of Tiffany's. I was joking, and I hope you did think it was quite funny. I am in much better mood. Today I'm going to read you a book on toilets. Toilets in History by Elizabeth Newberry. There's the picture before I start to read. We built the first public lavatories in Britain. I made sure attackers couldn't climb up guardrails. I had the best lavatories in the Middle Ages. I had my own royal loo. I invented the first flush toilet. I planned super sewers for London. We used the netty. A smelly old problem. Lots of people living together make enormous amounts of waste. Unless it's cleared, sewage spreads disease. Throughout history, people have dealt with the pongy problem in different ways. Find out how they solved toilet troubles in crowded cities, captured castles, and a splendid royal palace. Just think how many times a day you use the toilet. Imagine if you couldn't flush the sewage away and it built up into huge piles. Much worse. What if the muck wasn't just yours, but that of all the people living in your village, town or city? There are lots of other words for toilet. Latrine, lavatory, necessary house, powder room, privy, urinal, guardrobe, gents, ladies, public closet, convenience, washroom, water closet, WC, loo, smallest room, sewer, earth closet, netty. Can you think of any more? How many toilets like this can you find hidden in this book? Interesting. Keen to be clean. The Romans were extremely fussy about cleanliness. When the army came to Britain nearly 2,000 years ago, they found the Celts didn't have a way of getting rid of sewage. So the Romans built toilets called latrines, first their forts and then in towns. First in their forts and then in towns. The latrines at housesteads were built over deep channels and flushed with rainwater stored in large stone tanks. The sewage was washed away under the fort wall and into a ditch. There we are. It's this picture here. Many hundreds of Roman soldiers were stationed in large forts such as housesteads along Hadrian's Wall. The latrines had to be well organised because they were so busy. In towns, it's the orangey one. Now I'll say, in towns, Roman men and women went to the toilet together. The public latrines had no doors, or walls between each toilet. Everybody could see everyone else, but men and women both wore long robes, so nobody could see exactly what was going on. These Roman soldiers used sponge sticks to wipe their bottoms. Then they rinsed the sticks in a drain, and slave poured water over the soldiers' hands. What kind of nut do you find in a loo? Gardy-loo. What has 4 wheels and flies? In the Middle Ages, people in towns lived in filthy conditions. Streets were ankle deep in muck. Rats fed on the rubbish and people suffered from diseases spread by germs in the dirt. At night, people went to the loo in pots. The next day, they tipped the muck out of the window and cried, "Gardy-loo," to warn people. Gardy-loo. Over time, people tried to clean up towns. In the 1400s, more streets were paved and cleaned, and more public toilets were built. Sir Richard Dick Whittington left money to build one in the city of London with 64 seats. A well-to-do farmer and his family used this toilet. It jutted out from the side of their house and emptied into the pit below. The sewage was collected in barrows and spread on the fields to help the crops grow. There are lots of stories of people falling through rotten wooden floors into pits and drowning in the sludge. Oh dear. I think that's it. I think that's the sludge. Dangerous dung or dung. I'm not sure which is the correct pronunciation. What do you call a lady with 2 toilets? Castles needed well-organised ways of getting rid of sewage and other rubbish. If a castle was surrounded by attackers and there was no way of clearing the muck, it would pile up and the defenders would die of horrible diseases. To solve the problem of disease, toilets called guardrobes were built into the thickness of a castle's walls. The sewage fell down chutes straight into the moat. Fish in the moat fed on the waste. But if there were no moat, the sewage emptied into a pit, which had to be cleaned out by hand. Oh dear. Sweet loves, poor loves. Castle builders had to make sure that guardrobes were well protected. Once, a castle in France was captured when attackers climbed up large guardrobe chutes. I think one says chutes. Is it chutes? Please comment below. If there's any pronunciation that I've been incorrect on subject of today, please comment below. I love to learn. This guardrobe chute, or chute, I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation to be more precise, at Longtown Castle in Hertfordshire, has a large opening, but it is high up on the castle wall, so attackers would find it difficult to reach. There we are, that's this one here. Urine contains ammonia, which is used in the curing of leather. Old pea was collected from castles and other places where lots of people lived and sold to leather workers. My goodness me. Goodness me. What a stinky job. What has a bottom at its top? The monks who lived at Mount Grace Priory, Yorkshire, lived alone in their own tiny houses. They each had a toilet like this one here. The monks called a toilet a necessary house. It comes from the Latin word necessarium, which means toilet. The word lavatory comes from the Latin word lavatorium. This was the place where monks washed their hands before or after eating. Clean habits. In the Middle Ages, the best toilets in religious houses were in religious houses. Big monasteries and nunneries housed hundreds of monks or nuns, so they needed huge blocks of toilets. These were built in a special part of the monastery called the Rare Daughter, but the toilets weren't built for comfort. Lingering in lavatories wasn't allowed. Monasteries often had very good water systems. In 1349, the Black Death struck the country, but super clean drains at Christ Church Monastery in Canterbury kept the monks safe from the killer disease. Monks used branches from trees to clear blocked pipes. Separate toilet, wooden seat. Muck dropped down a chute. In the Middle Ages, these toilets at Rievaulx Abbey were considered luxurious. Muck was washed away by a stream. This job stinks. In some royal palaces, the toilets emptied into pits. They were scrubbed out by the special workers called gong scourers. It was so dark they had to work by candlelight. For much of Henry VIII's reign, the royal scourer was Philip Long. He had a team of boys of small men who climbed inside the pits. A royal loo. Hampton Court Palace, near London, was one of Henry VIII's palaces. Grand courtiers and humble servants all shared the same huge toilet. It could seat 14 people at a time. The sewage emptied into drains which ran under the palace moat and then into the River Thames that flowed through London. What did one eye say to the other? If I'm saying and have said sentences which you don't quite understand, doesn't seem to make sense, in what I've been reading is because there's been separate piece of a question or more than one question, and I think it's just for a bit of fun. So please, if you didn't understand, please put it down to what I've just said. And I repeat anything, and I repeat again anything which isn't clear, please comment below. I shall love to answer you. Gosh, I've lost my place. This job stinks. I've read that bit. Yes, a royal loo. Hampton Court Palace near London was one of Henry VIII's palaces. Grand courtiers and humble servants all shared the huge toilet. It could seat 14 people at a time. The sewage emptied into drains, which ran under the palace moat and then into the River Thames that flowed through London. Oh gosh. What a pong. Henry VIII had a very special toilet called a close stool. When Henry used it, a servant called the groom of the stole would be on hand with a basin, jug, towel and a cloth to wipe the royal bottom. He also had to empty the potty and get rid of any horrible smells. You can see this close stool at Hampton Court Palace. It is padded with crimson velvet and trimmed with ribbon and gilt studs. Henry's close stool must have been very like this one. A portable box with a hinged lid. A padded seat, a metal potty inside. I'm tired. I shall continue. Pull the chain. What did Queen Elizabeth do when she made a bad smell? Question mark. Pull the chain. In 1449, Thomas Brightfield invented a type of toilet that was flushed by water from a water tank called a cistern. The idea was too far ahead of its time and didn't catch on for years. The next person to develop the idea of a flushing toilet was Sir John Harrington, godson of Queen Elizabeth I. In 1596, he made a toilet which let the muck out of the bottom of the pan. At the same time, it released a flush of water from the cistern above. Elizabeth I used the toilet and liked it so much that she had one made for Richmond Palace. The next great advance was made by Alexander Cummings in 1775. His toilet had a special sliding part to let the sewage flush out. It also had a soil pipe bent into an S to stop the smell coming back up from below. It was called a stink trap. This was the design for Alexander Cummings' flushing toilet. Then Joseph Braham improved on Alexander's ideas. In 1778, he developed a toilet that flushed everything away by opening a valve and let it fresh water by another valve. Later, an engineer called Rogers Field improved the idea again. His toilet allowed the right amount of water to be released without wasting any. But a flushing loo inside a house was a luxury for most people until the 20th century. Braham's toilet looked like this. You pulled the handle up to empty the pan. The handle was connected to a wire which opened a valve in the cistern. Water flushed down the pipe and cleaned the pan. There we are. Sewage and rubbish were collected from cesspits in special carts by night soil men. They worked at night because there were fewer smells and flies in the cool air. Night soil men often worked as chimney sweeps during the day. A terrible pong. By the 1700s, many people living in cities had a deep pit for burying waste called a cesspit, in their garden or under their house. The smell was horrible, even in the best houses. There were lots of scary stories about people dying mysteriously on the night air. Today we know that the deadly killer was a mix of poisonous gases. Why did the scientist hide under the bed? In the 1700s, babies had their nappies changed only once a day, and they were trained to use a potty as soon as they were a few weeks old. Most children suffered with stomach pains and diarrhea so often that the potty had to be close at hand. Some babies had a potty fitted in a chair called a commode. You can see this one at the Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood in London. The baby was probably strapped in. There we are, that one. Adults used potties too. They were kept in the bedroom and in the dining room. Gentlemen used them after dinner once the ladies had left the room. There's a cryptic question. When did the scientists hide under the bed? Just here. The big stink. In Victorian times, big cities became overcrowded. Working people lived in tiny houses of all crammed together, and they shared an outside toilet called a privy. Sometimes more than 100 people shared the same one. The privies could not cope with all the waste, and it overflowed into the streets and rivers. In 1858, a heat wave caused the filthy River Thames to stink more than ever. The smell was so bad that MPs in the Houses of Parliament demanded to meet elsewhere. What's the dirtiest word in the world? In the same year as the big stink, the government asked an engineer called Sir Joseph Bazalgette, I think's the pronunciation, to build a new sewer system for London. If that was the incorrect pronunciation, please inform me. Over 83 miles of sewers were built to carry 420 million gallons of water every day. The sewers were completed in 1865, and soon the number of people dying of killer diseases began to fall. Sir Joseph's sewers had a smooth surface on the inside and sloped downwards to help the waste flush through them more quickly. This sewer at Peckham in South London was built in 1861. In London, sewage, dead animals, waste from slaughterhouses and breweries, horse dung and chemicals from factories were all dumped straight into the Thames. People drank the same water. So deadly diseases such as cholera and typhoid fever were common. In the 1830s, an attack of cholera killed tens of thousands of people in Britain. There we are. There's the cryptic question. And there's I think, one of the toilet systems. Possibly the one where there were 100 using it. No, that wasn't the one with 100 using it, I don't think. Sorry, I hope I'm not confusing you. Oh, that's it. More than 100 people shared the same one. Right. No, it's a different one, I'm pretty sure. But there we are, the last page that I read out to you. Here's the picture. So Joseph Sewers is this one that I'm pointing to. Luxurious lavatories. After 1850, inventors and engineers developed ways of piping hot running water into houses. For the first time, wealthy people could have bathrooms and toilets with a plumbed water supply. Many poor families could not afford these luxurious for another 100 years. When Queen Victoria travelled by train, she expected the same standard of comfort as she had in her palaces and castles. So she had her own special railway carriage with a commode inside it, just for her. Sir William Armstrong was a wealthy inventor and arms dealer who lived at Crayside, a huge house in Northumberland. Cragside had the best bathroom and lavatory for miles around. It had hot and cold plunge baths, a shower, a cool room, a steam room, a lavatory, and all decorated with beautiful Turkish tiles. So the question is, why didn't the millionaire have any toilets in his mansion? And the answer is because he was filthy rich. Darling, I must have one. Lavatories, a book on lavatories. Thomas Crapper started a plumbing business in Chelsea, London, in 1861. He made some of the best designed toilets around, Many of his designs were put in public conveniences, hotels, factories and schools, as well as private houses. You can still see many of them today. Here we are, made in Royal CV porcelain, white or ivory. Ivory. People could buy toilets from catalogues. This toilet was called the Deluge. There we are, Deluge, I think is the pronunciation, if I'm not mistaken, this one here. There's a picture of a couple looking at a magazine on toilets that one could order from a magazine in those days. There's a nice, well-to-do couple, seemingly. Am I correct? Darling, I must have one. Yes, it seems like it. People could buy toilets from catalogues. Interesting. Okay. Nipping to the netty. What do you get if you walk under a cow? A pat on the head. If you lived in the countryside in Victorian times, you might have used a privy called an earth closet. This was really just a hole in a plank set over a bucket. Each time someone used the privy, they covered the sewage with a layer of earth. When the bucket was full, the contents were spread on the garden or on the fields nearby, along with other farmyard manure. I don't quite get it. Why do you get... What do you get if you walk under a cow? Oh, I see. Right, I'm with it. People still use outside privies on building sites and boats and at country shows, pop festivals, in fields or other places where there are no permanent toilets. But instead of earth or ashes, chemicals break down the waste. In the north of England, a privy was called a netty. People tipped ash from fireplaces and nearby coke furnaces on top of the sewage to stop it smelling. The ash and muck mixture was cleared out of a trap door and used to grow prize leeks and onions. A vicar called Henry Moore, is it Moore? Please correct me if I'm incorrect, decided to put the ash and muck waste to the test. He persuaded a farmer to fertilise half a field with the muck from his earth closet and the other half with artificial fertilisers. The farmer planted Swedes in both halves of the field. The Swedes planted in manure from the earth closet grew 3 times as big. I think that's it, yes. The north of England, which was a privy, which was called a netty in those days. And there's the picture of it. A vicar called Henry Moore decided to put the ash, yes, I read that part. Here's the vicar, I think. No, I think that's the farmer. The picture at the bottom, I think, is the farmer. Clean bottoms. So what did people use to wipe their bottoms? Remember, in the past there was no soft toilet paper. In the earliest times, people squatted in fields and used leaves, moss, stones, or clumps of grass. In the 1700s, you could pay for the services of a human toilet in Edinburgh. A man carrying a bucket hid you under a cloak while you went to the loo. The first toilet paper was sold in 1880 by the British Perforated Paper Company. Today you can buy patterned and perfumed toilet paper in all kinds of colours. Now, the picture I've just shown you is connected to when I read How Do Astronauts Go to the Loo? In fact, I don't think I've read that to you yet. I shall. Such as Skylab have toilets with handles that they grip to stop themselves floating off. Astronauts, both men and women, pee into a funnel attached to waste pipes. The pee is dumped into space. Astronauts working outside spacecraft wear very absorbent pants under their spacesuits. There we are. How very, very interesting. Right, so that is the end of the book, reading-wise. So I hope that you have found this interesting. I did, and I think it's very, very sad, the manner in which people lived. I mean, I have OCD, and my cleaning habits are severe. I love to be hygienic as possible, as hygienic as I possibly can be. On a daily basis, I struggle with this. Cleaning the floor is a big thing for me. Oh my goodness gracious me. What a to-do, as one says. So my throat is sore now, and I'm well in need of a cup of tea or coffee. I'm going to have a nice cup of tea. So a very tired Sandy bids you goodbye. I hope that each one of you enjoyed this and are enjoying this. And please take care, and please take care of one another. And shalom, which is Hebrew for hello, peace, and goodbye.